Greetings all! Today, we'll be examining the common, normal flying-type Pokemon Pikipek, the Woodpecker Pokémon, its relatively uncommon evolution Trumbeak, the Bugle Beak Pokémon, and its final, relatively rare evolution Toucannon, the Cannon Pokémon. While the evolutionary forms might change radically as they develop, the members of the Pikipek family are still useful birds to work with if their better temperaments can be mastered.
Pikipek have small bodies with white feathers on their face and the underside of their wings, and black feathers covering most of everything else, as well as a small black tail and 2 grey legs with 4 toe feet, with 2 digits in both the back and front for stability. They have light blue eyes and a red crest of feathers that runs from the tip of their wispy head down to the base of their beak, which itself is a long, sturdy form with a grey base and black tip. The evolved form, Trumbeak, have the same general body form as their pre-evolved form, but are larger in size with a red ring at the base of their neck and a wholly black head crest. In addition, their beak has grown substantially in length and now has an orange base with a red stripe near the end before reaching its black tip. Their final evolution, Toucannon, have a sturdier and stouter frame to them with grey chest markings, blue legs and toes with black claws, a sprig of red plumage near the base of the tail, and a notable set of yellow cheek markings with blue lower eyelids and silver upper ones. Their beak has changed form radically from a sharp spike-like protrusion to a thick curved beak, still retaining a black tip, but otherwise being decorated with several striped hues of color that transition from yellow at the base of the beak to a dark orange at the base of the beak's black tip. Starting out as woodpeckers in form, the members of the Pikipek family are well known for their imposing beaks and the strong muscles that act as the powerhouse behind their pecking attacks, as they can peck at something with their beaks at a rate of about 16 times a second, which is so fast that it is almost impossible to observe without careful attention, and certainly impressive for a bird that otherwise looks fairly spindly. As with other woodpeckers, these creatures mainly use their beaks to bore holes into trees in order to devour insects that might be living inside the bark of a tree, and will additionally use their beaks in order to carve out small nests for them to live in. They will often store food in these small nests for certain weather conditions, as while they don't have to worry about flying south in the winter since they live in a tropical climate, they are weak to rain and cold temperatures and will often stay in the nest and refuse to go outside if there is even a slightly cold or damp breeze in the air.
As with Pikipek, Trumbeak also possesses a long beak that is perfect for boring out holes in trees in order to look for insects to eat and build nests, though it is usually easy to tell whether a nest belongs to a Pikipek or a Trumbeak, as the holes that these birds leave can oftentimes be so large that they might accidentally kill the tree they're using or otherwise severely injure it.
These birds do not seem to care much about this, though their territorial nature means that only one Trumbeak will ever occupy a tree at a time, helping out the plants at least somewhat as a whole. Like Pikipek, these creatures will often use their nest to store food in case it starts to rain or the weather turns a bit chilly, and they are known for using the seeds of the berries they dine on as ammunition for spitting at those that annoy them or otherwise enter their territory without permission, though they will not be strong enough to use this to learn the bullet seed attack until they themselves evolved into their adult form. This does at least benefit the overall environment though, as the scattered seeds often give rise to new plants and further resources for the local ecosystem to thrive upon. Evolution into Toucannon further alters the beaks of these creatures as they lose their pointed nature, the birds evolving into stronger omnivores that rely mainly on berries and small rodents to survive. This does not seem to bother these birds that much though, as they are fairly solitary and rarely ever commune with other members of the species, the only exception being during mating season. Even during this time though, these creatures do not peck at trees to communicate, instead smacking their beaks against one another, with the strength and number of impacts indicating how each individual feels. As a result of this, Toucannon are relatively welcomed by the natives of the Alola region, as they are generally non-destructive to the natural environment and less annoying to have to deal with. This even extends to how the birds mate, as they engage in monogamous relationships on a frequent basis, forming harmonious couples that stay so close together for the rest of their lives that they are often brought to wedding ceremonies in the Alola region as a good luck charm. Unfortunately, these birds do not enjoy human company all that much, and will actively attack any and all humans that dare to get too close to them, and openly show a bit of a negative attitude towards trainers they do not feel worthy of their presence, and have been known to be disobedient in cases where they really just don't like their trainer at all.
As a whole, these birds have excellent eyesight and can strike with incredible precision with multi-strike attacks with little effort, in turn possessing keen eye and skill link as base abilities. And while Pikipek and Trumbeak, that are especially curious towards their environment, can also have access to Pickup as a hidden ability, Toucannon, that are extremely brutish and ill-tempered, can strike with certain attacks far more harshly against others, granting them access to sheer force as a hidden ability instead.
As the stats may show though, especially in the case of Toucannon, these birds underperform in most areas even as adults, and do not have a lot to offer for serious battle, though at the very least they have an above-average base attack stat for a fully evolved normal and flying-type Pokemon, so they at least have something to work with if needed. Pikipek are somewhat territorial and, as with their evolved forms, will often use the seeds of the berries they sometimes eat as ammunition, spitting the seeds of those they feel are irritating them or violating their territory. This attack is not very strong on its own and isn't something to really be concerned with at their young age, even though they have enough power to embed these seeds in trees. They are also like Murkrow in that they are attracted to shiny, glittering objects and will often steal them or hide them in their nests. As such, in the Alola region where they are found naturally, there is an old adage that states, "Something lost, something missed, check inside the Pikipek nest." Aside from feeding in battle, it has further been observed that these small birds will also use their beaks to communicate with each other by tapping out signals in a primitive variant of Morse code. These birds seem to be capable of producing over 100 different sounds with their beaks, and both members of their own species and humans understand these as a form of communication, with much work having been done to try and translate their meaning. Most of the signals are basic warnings or notes of interest, but the rhythm of the pecking seems to denote the tone or feelings of the Pikipek tapping a message out, and some are exclusively used during mating season in order to entice females over. Males will often try and see who can peck at a tree the loudest, and the noise they generate can be both enrapturing and extremely annoying, depending upon who is listening to it. Thankfully, these birds will stop what they are doing if they feel threatened in any way, and are thus easy to get rid of, though they will continue the act the moment they can get the chance to, and will thus continue the noisy serenade until they either find a mate or night falls, as they are cautious towards moving around at night due to the threat posed by Pokemon like Spinarak and Ariados.
As with Pikipek, Trumbeak also use their beaks in order to communicate with each other in a primitive form of Morse code, and there have been over 100 different recorded messages identified for the species. Interestingly enough though, they are also very similar to those used by Pikipek, with the tone and pitch of the noises being the only thing that really changes to identify these birds as Trumbeak and not their pre-evolved form.
Because of the large bills though, the noise they make is much louder than their pre-evolved form, and is thus an extreme annoyance to many natives of the Alola region, as it will make noise for however long they feel like it, becoming almost unbearable during the mating season, where nightfall or the arrival of a potential mate is the only thing that can completely stop them. Interestingly enough though, it is worth noting that Trumbeak, possibly due to the sheer length of their beak relative to their body size, have the capacity to slightly bend the shape of their beak, creating over 100 different sounds altogether that go beyond even the normal range emitted by Pikipek, and at least partially explaining how they are able to keep their identities separate in their calls. Trainers should take notice of this when traveling through areas populated by these birds, as while Pikipek might be too skittish to attack humans directly, Trumbeak are not so easily spooked, and can be a painful nuisance to deal with if they can get their chance to unleash their beak against an unsuspecting traveler. It is also lastly noted that for the sake of inexperienced trainers that these birds turn slightly omnivorous in evolution, as they have been known to use seeds to stun prey items, usually small rodents, giving them enough time for these birds to use their pluck attack to spear the targets like a harpoon, killing them quickly and making a handy meal on the go.
Toucannon might seem relatively unassuming in terms of power and versatility in battle at first, but the massive beaks of these creatures hide a deadly secret. They have a combustion organ at the back of their throat.
While this organ is not strong enough to allow these creatures to breathe fire normally, they can use it to launch a devastating attack that they and only they learn immediately after evolving, the Beak Blast attack. From this combustion organ, these birds naturally secrete a flammable gas in their mouths that gives them the smell of charcoal, and when they are agitated, these birds can raise the internal temperature in the beaks to the point where they exceed 212 degrees Fahrenheit, making their beaks change color and become skin-searing hot to the touch. The heat will eventually grow large enough that will spontaneously ignite the flammable gases they produce in their mouths, and if these creatures have something like a large seed in their mouth at the time, the ignited gases will propel the projectile from their mouth at the speed of a bullet, resulting in a devastating projectile that can easily shatter boulders and otherwise deal damage in a fashion that equates it to a flying type attack. What makes the Beak Blast attack so interesting though is that because the attack takes some time to charge up, it is usually executed following an attack from an opponent. If the opposition makes direct contact with their beak during this charge up time, the extreme heat will sear them and effectively leave them with a burn, helping Toucannon in their efforts to take down their opposition. This, combined with the surprisingly high base attack stat, can more than make these birds a serious threat in battle and definitely worth preparing for.
These birds might not come off as all that strange when you take a good look at them, but they honestly have more going on with them than a lot of other similar bird Pokemon. Sure, they live the lifestyle of any normal bird and are known for their relationships with woodpeckers and toucans in general, but they can make good use of their frames to fire up seeds like projectiles and make the most of the good multi-strike attacks they can use naturally. This helps to give them an edge against rock types thanks to the bullet seed attack, and the surprisingly high attacks that they have, even at a young age, can help them stand out and go toe-to-toe with the likes of Pokemon like Staraptor on pure physical offense alone. They even manage to reach their adult form at an earlier stage of life than many other normal-type bird Pokemon families, and thus can be made use of in a more effective time span. That being said, though, they are still limited in their access to a wide variety of moves, so that power isn't always made the most of. But the signature Beak Blast attack can make them a lot trickier to handle in close quarters than one might initially think. As such, they are always best approached before in order to mitigate the chances of getting hit with a burn for acting at the wrong time. And even if that nullifies their best offenses, they can still hit hard from afar and should thus be handled as quickly as possible to avoid getting severely damaged by the physical might they can readily demonstrate.
Though small in form at first, and not much of a threat to many, the members of the Pikipek family are still strong creatures that can put up a good fight both up close and afar for whatever situation they are needed for. You might have some trouble with taming their more unruly dispositions at times, but if you can get a good handle on these beasts before they fully evolve, they can more than prove to be a hassle for others to deal with if they can't be taken out quickly.
Just do yourself a favor and try not to get into their business if you can help it. Getting pecked harshly in the face might be painful enough, but it might lead to a visit to the emergency room if you anger Toucannon to the point of literally setting it ablaze with fury.
Thank you for watching this video. It brings me great joy to be able to speak to you all in the world each and every time we meet like this, to explore the many different facets of both the world of Pokemon as we know it, and the world as we live it, through every adventure we have with Pokemon by our side. If you'd like to, please subscribe, ring the bell and all that jazz to keep yourself updated on content uploads and other materials of the like. You can also follow me on Twitter if you'd like to know right away when something new is uploaded, and my written works, from which most of this is based on, can be found on DeviantArt. Links to both can be found in the description down below. Remember that the world of Pokemon is a place full of wonder and mystery, and you never know what to expect. So, stay vigilant, keep watch, and always be prepared for the unexpected. Until next time, trainers and friends of all sorts, have a wonderful time.